think that there is a lot of will as the awareness is increasing here, as it is across the country, as you rightly pointed out. There is a lot of awareness of that trend here of investing in women, investing in minorities. We're really lucky to have Chloe Capital out of Ithaca leading the charge for this region on that specific topic, and I think they're doing a fantastic job.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, whenever you may be listening, and welcome to Latitude, the 43 North podcast. This is episode 102, and this week on the podcast, we're featuring Noah Simons from Upstate Capital Association. She's returning after almost 100 episodes. She was one of our very first guests here on the show. But before we jump into that, I want to let you know that Latitude Live is back, and it returns on June 5th. 5:30 p.m. at Duende, which is near Silo City. So if you know where all those giant silos are, there's actually a really cool event space and bar right there in the middle of the heart of Silo City. 5:30 p.m., June 5th, Duende. We are going to be featuring Nadia Hamilton from 43 North winner Magnus Mode. So again, 5:30 p.m., June 5th at Duende at Silo City. It's going to be a fantastic event. It's a free event. There's going to be plenty of folks there, and it's a great networking opportunity, and it's a great way to learn about the startups here in Western New York. We've got a great episode of the podcast this week with Noah Simons from Upstate Capital Association, so let's not waste another minute and jump right into this week's episode. Noah, how are you today?
I'm great, thanks. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. Welcome back to the show. You were one of the early guests on our show, I think within the first 10 episodes, I believe.
Well, I'm honored to have been an early guest, and I'm honored to be back.
One of the most downloaded episodes as well. That is a fact. You're in the top 5. So.
Very flattering.
But just to, it's been 100 episodes since you've been here. So for those who don't remember, just give us a quick pitch of who you are, what you do.
Absolutely. My name is Noah Simons, and I am the executive director of the Upstate Capital Association of New York. We are a professional membership association that exists to increase access to capital for companies and deal flow for investors across the upstate region.
And we'll be talking about deal flow a little bit later in the episode, but kind of wanted to jump into things here, talking about kind of the various types of capital at play throughout Upstate. You're seeing everything from angel investing to new VCs being formed. It seems like on a routine basis now, right?
Yeah, it's really interesting to see. Having been here now for coming up on 3 years, if you can believe that, running Upstate Capital, when I started, I was really aware of the institutional venture side of things and the private equity side, and then a little bit of experience with angels because I'd helped to start that seed fund in the Hudson Valley. But as I've spent time here and gotten to know a lot of the players and looked more deeply, I think the nuances in terms of the different kinds of angel investors that are within this community and also outside this community but looking to invest in this community is really interesting. Mm-hmm. We've been doing some programming around angel investor development that has showing some early signs of success to really cultivate that angel community.
For those kind of interested in angel, somebody has money or what's the... and I know we've touched on this in the past on the podcast, but kind of refresh everybody. What's the process you can't just start spending money willy-nilly, right? No.
So to be an angel, according to the SEC, you need to be an accredited investor.
Small organization, the SEC,
That's just that tiny little group, right? So an accredited investor is someone who, by SEC definition, has at least $1 million in liquid assets, not including their house. Or has been generating $200,000 in annual income if they're single and $300,000 in annual income if they're married for the last couple of years, mm-hmm. and project to be continuing to do that. So
I mean, it's actually in the broad sense, obviously, pay scales and savings and things like that vary, but that's actually a fairly low barrier of entry for people who want to kind of get into the game, so to speak, right? I mean, that's not, if you've got money, that's actually fairly easy to do.
Absolutely. I think if you've got some money, this is not, it's not a huge lift. And for the kinds of companies that angels see across New York, an investment of $10 or $20 or $50,000 can make a big difference. So cultivating the community of people who can see themselves as angels and can engage in that is something that we've been spending some time on.
But there's also probably, I'm sure you deal with this a lot, kind of the expectations of what an angel investor is, right? It's kind of that, it's that first step above, kind of the friends and family round. And
that's right.
So it's not, it's a long play, so to speak. It's not a get rich quick kind kind of investment, right?
No. When you look at national averages for angel investing, you're looking at 15 to 20% returns over a fairly long time horizon. And the people that are seeing those returns are doing a lot of deals. So diversifying your portfolio to manage your risk, you need to think about this like any asset class. And so, it's often attractive to just, you see something and it's shiny and it looks pretty and exciting and you want to sink your $25K into that. But having a strategy and having a thesis and spending the time to have some discipline around that often can serve angel investors better.
And you're developing curriculum over at Upstate Capital to kind of help people start thinking that way, because again, it's not just cutting a check and hoping for the best. There's logic, and you have to be smart about your investments.
Absolutely, and we are really trying to bring some of those established best practices from other parts of the country and other parts of the region to bear here, to elevate the level of discourse and awareness of angel investing as an option and as an opportunity, and provide some pathways into making those connections for people.
What are some of those best practices?
In terms of best practices, as we were talking about, portfolio strategy is really important. It's important to be thinking about writing good term sheets and having good legal work, having national standards level kind of work for writing and papering a deal, for doing due diligence on a deal, and then managing that portfolio company going forward.
In the 3 years you've been at Upstate, any data on like how the growth of the angel network kind of statewide has been? Have you seen, is the exponentially greater number of angel investors than when you started?
Well, just in the Hudson Valley, when I started at Upstate Capital a couple of years ago, we had just formed a fund and just brought together about 45 angel investors. And now just within our organized fund, between Fund 1 and Fund 2, we've got over 60. So on a, anecdotal basis, that's pretty good growth for that little region of the state. But around the state, we're seeing funds 2 and second and third funds being raised by the angel groups that are in Buffalo and Rochester and Albany. And I know that they're cultivating an angel community in the Binghamton area and the southern tier.
So everyone's kind of finding their niche. I know the southern tier is kind of getting into the energy sector. Obviously here in Buffalo, it's healthcare, tech, and kind of all the above. Central New York is kind of drone-based, investment, things like that. So everyone's kind of finding their pocket, so to speak, right? Yeah,
I think that there is a hand-in-hand kind of collaboration that's going with this ecosystem building between government-funded investment and government-funded programs to cultivate the entrepreneurial ecosystem and the private side. And so at a 30,000-foot perspective, we're really talking about public-private partnership when we're talking about growing these ecosystems.
What's kind of next? Where do you see, obviously the trend's probably going to keep rising. You're going to see more and more angel investors. Obviously that means more deal flow potential, right?
That's right. And I think that's part of the reason that Armory Square Ventures had some success raising their second fund. They just announced $31 million to invest. They're based here in Syracuse in this region. So I think that's promising. There are a number of other folks talking about raising venture funds. Some Impact Capital between Rochester and Buffalo is able to raise a solid amount of money. I'm not sure if they're public about that, so I'm not going to share the numbers, but I know that there are a number of other funds that have announced. Cayuga Venture Fund is raising out of Ithaca. There's a new group that a former member of Trillium Group in Rochester is part of in the Rochester region called Impellant Ventures that is raising a venture fund. So we do have a fair amount of activity around people working on raising that next level of funding, the institutional capital that supports the most promising angel investments in the region.
Are you seeing new VCs forming that are really targeting towards women and minority founded companies, and obviously they're the least represented kind of from a VC side of things historically. They get the least amount of money. So nationally that trend is picking up. I know 43 North's portfolio is above national average in terms of investing in those areas. What about statewide? How's that looking?
That's a great question. I think that there is a lot of will as the awareness is increasing here, as it is across the country, as you rightly pointed out. there is a lot of awareness of that trend here of investing in women, investing in minorities. We're really lucky to have Chloe Capital out of Ithaca leading the charge for this region on that specific topic, and I think they're doing a fantastic job.
Shifting gears a little bit, Upstate Capital recently announced the Capital Foundation of New York. What is that, and what are you guys aiming to do with that?
So the Capital Foundation of New York was formed last year primarily to house the statewide intercollegiate business plan competition that we took over last year. Mm-hmm. And that competition really is providing a platform for the next generation of entrepreneurs in our region. And we felt that it was really important for that program to continue moving forward and to explore what we could do with that. And it's a little bit outside the core mission of Upstate Capital. Sure. It's got a real educational component to it around supporting entrepreneurs and budding entrepreneurs who need access to mentorship and access to information and access to each other. So setting up the Capital Foundation has been an effort to carve out some of the educational work that is required to make that happen in conjunction with what we're doing at Upstate Capital. But that vision is actively evolving as we speak.
We're seeing more and more universities kind of developing their entrepreneurship programs, developing the idea of commercializing the research being done. UB is a great example of kind of the progress that's being done there. That's happening statewide. So, you're really kind of honing in on that, ensuring that these students have the resources to, capitalize on the opportunities they're given in school, and then right out of the gate, found companies, right? Exactly.
And, this program has been around since 2010, and there are some really great success stories right here in Buffalo. Buffalo Automation Group is a great example. Out of Ithaca, we had a company in the food and ag space whose name I'm blanking on at the moment. They've been very successful. I know they ended up getting some early stage capital from some of the organizations in our region. So there are a number of success stories already to point to, and I think the more we can knit this together and create that pathway from cradle through sort of the growth trajectory that some of the most impressive companies in our region are able to experience, I think it'll be beneficial and probably more efficient for lots of folks.
Well, when you look nationally, there's institutions that did that 20 years ago. You look at Pittsburgh, for example, or Penn State. Was another one. I was at Penn State last year. They have a huge conference, Invent Penn State, where they get together all the innovations happening at Penn State and bring investors into the room. And having those opportunities, of course, for those students or recent grads have that opportunity to get in front of VCs is vital if they want to try to get their startup off the ground.
Absolutely. I think it works on both sides, because a lot of people, especially people who are active in this region and have ties back to upstate New York, have a real desire to help that next generation and to support this kind of work. So there's a great sort of synergistic give back message of, please come and support the statewide intercollegiate business plan competition. Oh, and by the way, you're getting a first look at all of these hot ideas that are coming out of the colleges and universities across the region. So I think it works really well for everyone.
So what's new on the horizon now that you guys have taken that over? What can we expect down the road with that?
So you can expect that we'll go through some strategic planning.
All the planning.
All the planning. Establishing a solid funding base for that is top of my mind. There are a number of directions that the coalition that I'm working with has talked about taking this. Probably the most popular one is post-program, post-event mentorship for the teams that want it. This year, we were able to put together on-site mentorship and on-site connections for the students when they were not in their pitch mode. Mm-hmm. So one-on-one connections directly during the day. That was wildly successful and very popular with students and mentors alike. So I think people found a lot of value in that in-place connection. And I think with resources, as we vision and grow this program, we can look at mentorship opportunities and connections going forward.
Mentorship is really one of those prizes in, especially in the 40th North competition that, it's kind of like the silent celebrity. It's the money's fantastic. It's with 40th North, it's $1 million or $500,000, but the feedback we've gotten for the last 3 or 4 years is the money was great, the capital was fantastic, but the mentorship and the connections and the networking you were able to provide, Western New York, Central New York, in all of Upstate, they're small, big cities. Everybody knows somebody who can get something done, right? So that's, I think, a unique aspect of New York State. We all kind of know somebody who can help something get done, and I think that's a great advantage for startups developing in New York State.
I absolutely agree. I think that the opportunities to keep cultivating that kind of community and that kind of community spirit are really strong, and that this is a great platform to do that on.
Getting back to kind of the venture side of things, the community development financial institution, CDFIs, how are those being deployed as kind of venture aspects for startups seeking capital?
So we have a couple of interesting examples of organizations that are part of Upstate Capital that are pursuing the CDFI route. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting to me about it is you're able to take basically donated capital from banks. So through the CRA Act, communities, banks are reinvesting in communities.
That's why in the news you see pretty much every week a bank investing in some aspect of the community. It's because of the CRA, right? Exactly.
And so the CDFI model is a really tried and true way to do that. And what I'm seeing in our region are a couple of different examples, particularly Buffalo and Rochester, of bringing venture thinking together with CDFI funding. So you're seeing that in Launch New York. You're seeing that in the Venture Jobs Foundation, who are working on their CDFI designation, and we're finding this intersection of capital access, maybe not for venture companies specifically, but for more oriented towards those communities that have been left behind historically and need both the mentorship and the capital to grow even Main Street businesses. Yeah. And then there's some move into potentially high growth companies too, because you're bringing these models together. So it's, I think, in the fairly nascent stages, but it's a very interesting trend.
You guys have a bunch of upcoming events, but you were actually in Buffalo for an event at the Pierce Arrow Museum last night. What was that all about?
So, Upstate Capital is this interesting organization that bridges the gap from, I like to say, cradle to grave for companies, but really from early stage companies all the way through to mature businesses that are looking for strategic growth or change, M&A kind of activity. And so we were here last night at the Pierce Arrow for our inaugural Buffalo Private Equity Summit. And we were able to bring in a number of private equity professionals from Toronto, Pittsburgh, Ohio, Boston, New York City, New Jersey. We had a great collection of people here in Buffalo last night, really talking about the dynamics and the trends that we're seeing in private equity, both here in Buffalo, in the broader region of upstate New York, and across the country.
It's one of the things I love about Buffalo is you can just come to and from all those cities in about a 45-minute flight.
It's amazing.
And you're here.
Buffalo's got some great infrastructure.
Yeah. So what's coming up for Upstate Capital? What's on the horizon in the next few months?
So we've got a couple other marquee events coming up. I'm pretty excited about planning Saratoga. It's our 12th annual Saratoga Forum this year on August 7th and 8th. We are working with a theme of building great companies and really focused on making this for current and future either venture-backed or potentially private equity-related CEOs. So focused really on the CEO development and evolution. We will have a former Buffalonian as one of our keynote speakers, Ashok Subrahmanian. Mm-hmm. So I'm pretty excited about his attendance at that event.
And for those who aren't aware, what's his background?
He built a healthcare company called Centivo Health and had a great exit and is on to his next one.
Fantastic. Yeah. What else is coming down the pike?
Oh, we've got Upstate Down Pitch Day in New York City in a couple of weeks. I know we've got some 43 North companies that'll be featured there. We're excited to bring downstate capital to upstate companies through that event.
You have a food tech-based event coming up in September, is it?
That's right. So September 26th, we'll be back not too far from here in Wayne County on an apple farm talking about the future of food and ag tech. So that'll be our second annual. We had a great success with our first one last year. And this year, I think it dovetails really nicely with a new program that the Ag Tech Center at Cornell is launching around a business plan competition, not very dissimilar from Genius New York or 43 North, around the food and ag tech cluster. So
everyone's getting in on the competitions.
That's right. Well, it's a popular model.
Everyone loves Shark Tank, right? Everyone loves seeing people sweat on stage. It's great. Noah, for those who want to connect with you or learn more about Upstate Capital, how can they do so? So
we have a great website, upstatecapital.org. People are welcome to find us there. I can also be reached through LinkedIn. Email's good. But yeah, our website, probably the best way to start.
Well, I know you got to head back to Syracuse for some more meetings today, so I really appreciate you taking the time today and chatting with us. And hopefully we'll get you back before another 100 episodes go by.
I like it. Thanks so much.
Cheers. I want to thank Noah for joining me on the podcast this week. Make sure you head on over to the Upstate Capital Association website or find Noah on LinkedIn to connect with her. Just want to remind you again, like I did at the top of the show, that June 5th, 5:30 p.m. at Duende, Silo City, Latitude Live returns with our featured guest, Nadia Hamilton from 43 North Winning Company, Magnus Mode. It's going to be a really great night for folks to learn about what Magnus Mode is doing for folks in living with autism and the tools that Magnus Mode is creating so that they can live lives just like everybody else. So head on over to Eventbrite, search Latitude Live, and register for your free ticket to Latitude Live on June 5th, 2019, Duende, 5:30 p.m. at Silo City. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. Make sure you head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave a 5-star review of this show if you like it. And make sure you shoot me an email, podcasts@43north.org, for any recommendations you may have for future guests or topics on this show. Thank you so much for listening. For 43 North, I'm Nate Benson, and we'll see you at the next one.